The air was thick with the scent of gunpowder and death. Smoke billowed into the sky, blotting out the sun, while the sound of distant artillery fire echoed through the valley. Captain Daniel Harper stood atop a ridge, binoculars in hand, scanning the ruined city below. What was once a thriving metropolis was now a battlefield, its streets littered with the remnants of a war that had dragged on for 5 long years. It had started as a border conflict, a mere skirmish between rival nations. But as alliances were forged and enemies made, the war grew into something far more catastrophic. Entire cities had been razed, millions displaced, and the world now stood on the precipice of total annihilation. And in the center of it all was Daniel, a soldier who had seen too much, lost too much, yet kept fighting because there was no other choice. The radio crackled to life at his hip. "Captain Harper, enemy troops advancing from the south. They'll be here within the hour." Daniel lowered his binoculars and turned to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Reyes. "We don't have the manpower to hold them off. We need reinforcements." "None are coming," Reyes said grimly. "Command has declared this sector lost. They want us to retreat." Daniel clenched his jaw. Retreat meant surrendering the city, allowing the enemy to push further into their territory. It meant more innocent lives lost, more destruction. He had given too much to let that happen. "No retreat," he said firmly. "We make our stand here. We hold them off as long as we can. If we fall, we take as many of them with us as possible." Reyes nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I'll rally the men. The battle begins." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the enemy forces approached. Hundreds of soldiers marched in disciplined formation, their armored vehicles rumbling behind them. From his vantage point, Daniel could see the cold efficiency of their movements. They were well-trained, well-equipped, and vastly outnumbered his men. "Steady," Daniel whispered as his soldiers took their positions. Snipers lay in wait atop the crumbling buildings, machine gunners took cover behind sandbags, and the few remaining artillery units were loaded and primed. Then, the silence shattered. The first mortar shell exploded in the heart of the enemy ranks, sending bodies flying. Snipers picked off officers, creating chaos in the advancing lines. Machine guns roared to life, cutting through the enemy soldiers like wheat before a scythe. But the enemy was relentless. They returned fire with ruthless precision. Bullets whizzed through the air, striking down Daniel's men. Rockets streaked through the sky, reducing entire buildings to rubble. The ground trembled beneath the onslaught, and Daniel knew they couldn't hold forever. "Fall back to the second line," he shouted, leading the retreat. His men scrambled through the debris, taking cover in alleyways and behind wrecked vehicles. The battle raged on, street by street, block by block. With every inch they lost, they made the enemy pay in blood. Hours passed, but it felt like an eternity. Daniel fought with everything he had, his rifle an extension of his body, his hands slick with sweat and grime. He saw Reyes go down, a bullet striking his shoulder. He rushed to his side, dragging him behind cover. "You're not dying on me," Daniel growled, pressing a bandage to the wound. Reyes grinned weakly. "I wasn't planning to." The turning point. As the battle wore on, exhaustion seeped into Daniel's bones. They had held out longer than anyone had expected, but their numbers were dwindling. The enemy, sensing victory, pressed harder. Then a miracle happened. A deafening roar filled the air as Allied aircraft streaked across the sky. Bombs rained down on the enemy ranks, turning their formations into chaos. Tanks rolled in from the east, cutting off their reinforcements. The tide was turning. Daniel's radio crackled to life. "Captain Harper, reinforcements have arrived. Hold your position." Relief washed over him, but he knew the battle wasn't over yet. "All right, soldiers. This is our chance. Push forward." With renewed vigor, his men surged ahead. The enemy, caught between their fire and the incoming Allied forces, began to falter. One by one, they fell. The city, once thought lost, was reclaimed. The aftermath. When the last shot was fired, Daniel stood amidst the ruins, his body battered, his heart heavy. Victory had come at a cost. His unit, once 100 strong, was now reduced to a handful of survivors. He looked at the battlefield, at the bodies of friends and foes alike, and wondered if it had all been worth it. Reyes limped over, a weary smile on his face. "We did it." Daniel nodded.
"Yeah,
"We did." But as he gazed at the smoke-filled horizon, he knew the war wasn't over. Not yet. The battle had been won, but the fight for peace was far from finished. And so, with a heavy heart, he prepared for the next war to come.